The Kursk region, a battlefield shaped by political imperatives and military realities in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The ongoing situation in the Kursk region presents a complex and evolving narrative in the broader context of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Over the past 48 hours, the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF, have significantly decreased their activity in the area, signaling that the strategic goals of their operation may not be achievable. However, despite this reduction in intensity, the UAF has not abandoned attempts to push forward in certain sectors, hoping to seize any opportunity to capture a settlement. The fog of war, Kursk region's hidden battlefield. The Kursk region, shrouded in the fog of war, remains one of the least transparent fronts in this conflict. Unlike other areas where military engagements are more overt, the Kursk region has seen a more calculated, though desperate, effort by the UAF, a campaign driven more by propaganda needs than sound military strategy. Kyiv needed a spectacle to demonstrate Russia's vulnerability and test the red lines of Moscow's defensive strategies. However, much of what has unfolded in the Kursk region appears to be more a product of Ukrainian imagination than a reflection of the ground reality. A tactical raid with limited success. From the outset, this operation was not designed for long-term gains but rather as a high-risk raid by mobile groups, albeit large and well-equipped once support forces included. The operation may have involved up to 30,000 UAF personnel. The goal was to advance as far as possible into Russian territory, but any discussion of achieving significant depth is speculative at best. Preliminary assessments suggest that key targets may have included the Kursk nuclear power plant and the capture of historic district centers like Rylsk and Lvov. However, as the situation currently stands, these objectives have largely fallen short. The UAF now finds itself transitioning from an offensive to a defensive posture within the occupied territories of the Kursk region. Ukrainian forces have dug in, bringing in significant engineering and specialized equipment, signaling a shift in strategy. The offensive potential of this group is nearly depleted, and their supply lines mainly reliant on the Sumy-Kursk highway are under constant threat from Russian artillery. The UAF's penetration into Russian territory resembles a narrow, elongated corridor, highly susceptible to counterattacks, particularly along the flanks given the terrain. Despite this, the UAF continues its push toward Korenwabo and in the Sudzha area, driven more by inertia than by any realistic hope of strategic gain. A propaganda trap and its consequences. This operation also appears to have had a secondary objective, to draw Russian forces away from other critical fronts, thereby easing the pressure on beleaguered Ukrainian units elsewhere. However, this plan backfired. While the Russian armed forces did indeed redeploy sufficient troops to the Kursk region to contain the UAF's advance, this did not significantly impact Russian offensive operations on other fronts. Successful Russian advances continued unabated in regions like Pokrovsk, Toretsk, and Kupiansk, where the UAF's defensive lines are crumbling. By August 29, the situation had become critical for the Ukrainian forces, with their positions deteriorating across a large swath of the front. The collapse of the UAF's defenses on the Pokrovsk front, coupled with minimal resistance in Solidovo and Mirnograd, Dmitrov, set the stage for Russian forces to establish a new front line along Pokrovsk-Solidovo-Kharkov-Volodar within a few weeks. Ukrainian forces could find themselves pressed against the Kramatorsk-Slovyansk agglomeration, with the inevitable loss of Chasiv Yara looming. The swift liberation of Sinkovka, essentially a suburb of Kupiansk, after more than a year of fighting, directly resulted from the redeployment of capable Ukrainian units to the Kursk region. In essence, Ukraine has fallen into the very trap it set for the Russian army. The dilemma of withdrawal, political versus military realities. Ideally, the UAF should withdraw from the Kursk region and regroup in more defensible positions. However, such a move is politically unthinkable for Kyiv. President Zelensky and his inner circle appear ready to take any irrational steps to maintain the facade of progress, including pressuring the UAF to continue targeting the Kursk nuclear power plant for the sake of media impact. Ukrainian military leadership, particularly commanders like Oleksandr Syrsky, seem unwilling to challenge these politically driven decisions, even when they defy military logic. As a result, Ukrainian forces will likely cling to their current positions, continue supplying their forward groups, and even redeploy fresh troops to the Kursk region despite heavy losses during their approach. This scenario is reminiscent of the so-called KRYNKY effect, where holding a militarily insignificant area led to significant personnel depletion and the complete loss of combat effectiveness for an entire branch of the UAF, namely, the Marines. The same principle of media-driven military actions has been observed in other operations, such as the ill-fated attempts to land on the Kinban Spit and Snake Island. Future prospects: a slow but steady contraction. Among military experts, there is a prevailing view that the Russian armed forces may opt for a strategy of gradually wearing down the Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region over the next month. While the emotional desire to protect border residents and swiftly clear the region of enemy forces is strong, the reality may require a more measured approach. So far, this operation has served as Zelensky's primary tool for self-promotion and as a motive for Ukraine's foreign ministry to beg NATO for more weapons. This is why the UAF is expending a significant portion of its previously accumulated reserves in the Kursk region, a consequence of prioritizing political optics over military strategy. Most likely, the situation in the Kursk region will stabilize soon. Once this happens, a thorough assessment of positions, losses, and the combat readiness of the enemy's forward group will be conducted. This will inform a decision either to push the remaining Ukrainian forces out of the region or to pursue another form of counteraction by the Russian armed forces. However, the main Russian offensive will likely continue to develop in the western, southwestern, and southern sectors, leading to the defeat of several large Ukrainian groupings, the collapse of the front from Volodar to Chasiv Yar, and the capture of key settlements and logistical hubs. After these developments, the irrational counter-offensives and strikes by the UAF, including those targeting border regions, will likely lose their purpose. A persistent threat: Kyiv's propaganda-driven strategy. There are rumors that Kyiv is forming another 5 to 10 new brigades, although these units have not yet been seen on the battlefield. The theoretical threat of another propaganda-driven strike remains, and it would be unwise to dismiss such possibilities entirely. The current Ukrainian leadership has shown a willingness to take irrational steps purely for the sake of optics, and as long as this mindset persists, the threat of further reckless actions will remain. In its ongoing quest to secure more wonder weapons from the West, Kyiv will continue to need visible proof that the UAF is still capable of advancing. Therefore, a new action could be timed to coincide with the moment the Russian armed forces begin the active phase of pushing the enemy out of the Kursk region. As the conflict drags on, the Kursk region will remain a symbol of the broader strategic tug-of-war between military realities and political imperatives in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war.